Malcolm and Marie is a new romantic drama that is now streaming on Netflix. It just came out on Friday. And this film is directed by Sam Levinson and it stars Zendaya and John David Washington. So the basic premise, the synopsis, the plot, the storyline that can set you up for what this movie is about is a couple gets into a fight. That's the story. Okay, maybe that's a little bit of oversimplification, but that's basically the plot of this movie. John David Washington plays a filmmaker who just came out with a movie that is apparently really good and is a big hit with everybody. His hot girlfriend, played by Zendaya, they go home to this really nice house where they're talking about the movie and the premiere, and then all of a sudden they just start fighting about a bunch of stuff, and the entire movie is just them arguing about their lives. That's the movie. I do want to single out the aesthetic of a movie like this. I think this was one of the first films, if not the first film, to be produced and financed and shot entirely during the pandemic or the lockdown period of the pandemic. Am I allowed to say pandemic, or is it the C word that I'm not allowed to say? I can't remember. I've said cunt a few times on videos like this, but the other C word, you know, probably get this video banned or demonetized or something. So I'm not gonna say the C word, but I will say the pandemic and lockdown. I think those are safe words to use. I don't know, I'm looking up like I'm about to be struck by lightning. Either way, the aesthetic of this movie is actually one of the strong points. The way that this film is shot, the way that it looks, the cinematography, all of that is handled really well. Like, as far as the set design for this house, it's a gorgeous looking house, and definitely with the cinematography being in black and white, you can play with a lot of shadows and contrasts and things like that. There's a lot of tracking shots, and there's excellent blocking, especially on shots from outside the house. They do this thing sometimes where they take the camera and they place it outside of a room, or they place it outside of a window, and they just watch characters walk back and forth between different rooms. The blocking in this movie is definitely some high level stuff. But really the whole crux of this movie, the point of the film itself, is in the performances. Zendaya and John David Washington. If one or both of them is bad, or they're not really selling the chemistry, or whatever the case, you feel like most of this movie probably crumbles. And in most movies that probably would be the case, but it's even more magnified in a movie where there's only two people in the cast. Zendaya, I feel like people have been sleeping on her for a little bit. If you haven't seen Euphoria, you definitely should check out Euphoria. You'll definitely see what she's working with there. Zendaya is a legit actress. Like, she's talented, and she definitely flexes that talent a lot of times in this movie. She's a firecracker at different times. Like, she has so much conviction and fire and fierceness to what she's saying. And even when she's not given the best dialogue within the script to work with, even when she has to clunk her way through some weirdly written lines or whatever, her delivery is so on point that you believe her and you believe what she's saying. So I gotta give kudos to Zendaya. She slayed the beast in this movie. The same thing goes for John David Washington. Obviously, you know, people only look at him still to this point in his career as, oh, that's Denzel's kid. But honestly, you guys should check out this guy's work. He's honing in on his craft, and he's really doing a good job delivering great performances in some pretty above average movies. Kind of unhinged in this movie a little bit. He kind of gets to show a little bit more of his wild side, and I like the fact that he's already displaying a lot of different ranges in the characters and the people that he gets to choose to play in these movies. The relationship stuff is front and center, and that's the bulk of the entire film. There's also kind of tiny little scathing critiques about the film industry and film criticism and how film is even processed nowadays by the fans, the media, reviewers, all that stuff. Unfortunately, when it comes to the script and the story and everything overall, I gotta say, this probably just wasn't for me. Like, I think I could just say that to you guys honestly. This movie's just not for me. I liked this movie, I just didn't love it. And I didn't love it for the same reasons that I didn't love Marriage Story. At the end of the day, what you're just watching is you're watching regular everyday shit, and you're watching two people's relationship like deteriorate and fall apart right in front of you. And after a while, it just feels like the movie is not designed to be as long as it is. That speaks to the pacing, but it really more speaks to the fact that they take this premise, this idea that these characters have a lot of stuff hidden beneath their relationship. It tries to peel the layers back, but it does it slowly so that every scene feels like a rendition or a repeat of a scene that came before. Out of the obnoxious yelling and arguing and fussing in this movie, it just starts to feel redundant and repetitive after a while, and it's just not that interesting. And to be honest, when you look at the script, despite the fact that they say a bunch of uncomfortable things out loud, and that's the whole point, is to get these two people uncomfortable with each other, I feel like even then the movie's not actually saying anything. It's just two people just fussing at each other. Like, two people just can't stand each other and displaying all the traits of one of the most toxic relationships in the history of movies, I I guess. For some people, that's gonna be enough. That's gonna be entertaining enough, and you're gonna be on board with Zendaya and John David Washington, and you're gonna love all of that. So for some people, I get it. It's gonna be right up your alley. I don't know. After a while, I feel like there's only so many different versions of this scene that I can see, and this movie has multiple versions of the same type of scene, which is Zendaya says something, he gets mad, and then he says something, she gets mad, and then pretty soon they're both just saying the most hurtful thing possible to each other just to say, hey, we got issues. And I'm like, okay, if the point of the movie is, hey, we got issues, that's great, but couldn't we have made this like a short film or maybe like a 30-minute TV episode? The pacing and the script and the overall just blotted nature of the plotting just kind of left me wanting, left me a little bit cold on this movie. And again, that's not to say it's not a good movie, it's just not my cup of tea personally. There is one scene in this movie that kind of makes the whole thing worth it, and I'm not gonna spoil it, but suffice it to say, if you've ever taken like a big juicy bite out of like a burger or a sandwich or something that you were really hungry for, it's a similar vibe, but I can't really say much more than that. But real ones know, people that saw the movie, you know what I'm talking about. Malcolm and Marie was a good movie, not great, fell a little bit short for me. I'm gonna leave this one in the Silver Age for Man of Steel. Please like and subscribe to the Superfan Show, and as always, if you like what you see, tell me how you feel, and stay tuned to hear more from the Man of Steel. Peace.